Ask 10 writers in a Facebook group what a hybrid publisher is, and you will get 10 different answers. Several of them will be wrong, and at least one will describe a business model that quietly takes both the writer's money and their rights in the very same contract. The confusion is not the writer's fault. Publishing has 4 genuinely different paths into print. Each one has its own economics, its own vocabulary, and its own trade-offs. And almost nobody explains all 4 side by side before a writer has to pick one. That is exactly what we are going to do today. If you are an aspiring or early career author, and the jargon has left you feeling more confused than informed, this video is for you. By the end, you will understand the real differences among your publishing options. You will know how to evaluate your own priorities and constraints. And you will be equipped to choose a publishing path deliberately, instead of by accident or by whichever option a Facebook ad happened to show you this week. Let me be clear about one thing from the start. I am not going to tell you which path is right. Nobody can, because the right answer depends on you. Instead, I am going to give you the questions that reveal the right lane for your book. So let's start there, with the decision framework. Before you learn the mechanics of any single path, you need to answer some honest questions about yourself and about this particular manuscript. Your answers will not hand you a verdict. They will point you toward a lane. Here is the first question. How much time do you have before you want this book in a reader's hands? Traditional publishing routinely runs 1 to 3 years from a signed contract to release, and that is on top of however long the agent search takes. Every other path can move in months, if you are ready to move. Second question. How much of the production work do you want to do or manage yourself? That means editing, cover design, formatting, distribution setup, and metadata. Traditional publishing and small presses take all of this off your plate. Hybrid and partnership models hand you a team, but you still manage the process. Self-publishing means you either do it yourself or you hire and coordinate each piece. Third question. How much control do you need over the final product? The cover art, the title, the trim size, the release date. As a rule, control increases as you move away from traditional publishing and towards self-publishing. Fourth question. What is your tolerance for rejection? Not as a verdict, but as a process. Traditional publishing runs on rejection. Most queries go nowhere. And most manuscripts an agent does take on will still get passed on by editors. If that process would stall you, rather than simply annoy you, that is worth knowing before you commit a year to it. Fifth question. Do you have a budget to invest in this book, and how much? Traditional publishing costs you nothing up front, and it pays you in advance. Every other path either costs money directly or costs you in unpaid labor. And the sixth question. Are you building a single book or a career? A writer planning one novel has very different needs than a writer planning to publish steadily for the next decade. Some paths reward that long-term thinking far more than others. Self-publishing and small presses both benefit from a backlist in a way that a single traditional deal simply does not. Sit with your answers before we go further. They will make the next sections much more useful, because you will be reading each one asking, does this fit me? Instead of, does this sound respectable? Now let's look at the 4 lanes at a glance. We will compare them across costs, advances, royalties, rights, and gatekeeping. The 4 lanes are traditional publishing, small or independent press, hybrid or partnership, and self-publishing. First, who pays the production costs? In traditional publishing, the publisher pays. In a small press, the publisher pays. In hybrid or partnership, you pay, in full or in part. In self-publishing, you pay in full. Next, who owns the ISBN and the publisher of record status? With traditional and small presses, the publisher does. With hybrid or partnership, it is usually the press, but this varies by contract. With self-publishing, it is you. Now, advances. Traditional publishing commonly offers one, and the range varies widely by publisher size. Small presses offer a small advance or none at all. Hybrid, partnership, and self-publishing offer no advance. Royalty rates are where the picture really shifts. Traditional publishing pays roughly 10 to 15% of list price in print and about 25% of net on ebooks. Small presses often pay 25 to 35%, or a higher net profit split, and this varies by press. Hybrid presses share royalties with you. Partnership presses pay you 100% since you already paid for the service. And in self-publishing, you keep the full retailer payout, roughly 60 to 70% of list price on most platforms. Then there are rights. Traditional and small presses acquire and control your rights for a contracted term. With hybrid or partnership, your rights should remain with you, so verify this in any contract before signing. With self-publishing, the rights are fully yours. Finally, gatekeeping. In traditional publishing, an agent and then an acquiring editor both have to say yes. In a small press, an editor at the press has to say yes, usually with no agent required. In hybrid, partnership, and self-publishing, there is no gatekeeping, because you are a paying customer or the sole decision-maker. And on timeline, traditional publishing is slow, often 1 to 3 years after signing. Small presses are usually faster, though still months to a year or more. Hybrid and partnership typically run in months, and self-publishing moves as fast as you are ready. Now let's clear up the two terms where most of the Facebook group confusion lives. A hybrid press shares production costs and shares royalties with you. It functions like a scaled-down traditional publisher, but with a paid buy-in. A partnership press, sometimes called an assisted press, is a service provider you hire in full. In exchange, you should keep all your rights and all your royalties. The two get lumped together constantly because both involve the author paying something. But a contract that takes a royalty cut from you while calling itself a partnership is misusing the term. That is a red flag worth noticing before you sign. Now, let's look more closely at each path, starting with traditional publishing. This is the path most writers picture when they imagine getting published. An agent represents your manuscript to acquiring editors at publishing houses. If an editor wants it, the house pays you in advance against future royalties. Then the house handles editing, design, production, distribution, and a portion of the marketing. The gatekeeping here is real, but it is not personal. Only a small percentage of writers who query an agent land representation. And an even smaller percentage of represented manuscripts actually sell to a publisher. A rejection at either stage is closer to a market judgment than a verdict on your writing. Timing, the comparable titles already on a list, and an editor's specific taste all factor in as much as quality does. The money is also more modest than the headlines suggest. Most debut novel advances from a major publisher land in the $10,000 to $35,000 range. Small presses and independent publishers typically offer far less, often a few $1,000s or nothing at all, in exchange for a higher royalty percentage. Standard print royalties run roughly 10 to 15% of list price. Ebook royalties sit closer to 25% of net receipts. Here is a sobering fact. Most books, even traditionally published ones, do not earn out their advance. That means, for most authors, the advance functions as the primary payment, not a down payment on ongoing royalties. So, if you go this route, know how to vet an agent. Confirm membership in the Association of American Literary Agents, the industry's ethical standards body. Check recent sales activity through a site that tracks actual deals rather than just the agency's own description. And remember this. A legitimate agent never charges you a fee to represent you. Their income comes from a commission on the sales they make for you, typically around 15%. Now, let's talk about the lane that gets skipped over most often, the small or independent press. In the endless traditional versus self-publishing debate, this category gets ignored, but it deserves to stand on its own. A small or independent press acquires your manuscript the same way a traditional publisher does. There is no cost to you, and an editor still has to say yes. But it operates at a different scale. Many publish only a short list of titles a year. Many do not require agent representation to submit. And many can move considerably faster than a major house from acceptance to release. The trade-off runs in both directions. Advances are typically small or non-existent, but royalty percentages tend to run higher than a Big Five contract offers. Sometimes they are structured as a straight percentage of net profit, rather than list price. You will generally have less marketing support than a major publisher provides. And sometimes you will have less control over the cover art than you would in self-publishing. But in return, you gain a publisher of record, professional editing, and distribution setup, without paying for any of it directly. Here is a simple comparison. A small press might offer no advance and a 30% net royalty. A Big Five deal might offer a $15,000 advance and a 12% list price royalty. Neither is automatically better. It depends entirely on which trade-offs fit your goals. So bring it all back to those 6 questions. How much time do you have? How much work do you want to manage? How much control do you need? What is your tolerance for rejection? What can you invest? And are you building one book or a career? Answer those honestly, and the right lane stops being a guess. It becomes a deliberate choice. And that is the whole point. You do not have to publish by accident. You can publish on purpose.